All right, Brother Kapil, welcome. And we are all excited to have you here, and we'll try to do our best to help you out.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhajan.
All right, guys. So let's start. Topic of the day is STLC. We're still working STLC. And I hope by now you guys know what is STLC, what are different activities happens in STLC. So as we're learning about STLC, we have learned about the first phase, which is the analysis of the requirement phase. And we all know how we supposed to do this. Creating of the test plan is the second step. And by now, all of us know how to create a test plan. Then creating test cases. This is where we are, right? Creating test cases. And we're not through this, but I'm going to move forward while being in here for the next week as well. We still need to come back and finish this, guys. Understand, this is very crucial. This is very important step, and we need to know exactly how to do this. And not only just do it properly. And when you write test cases, it has to be nice and presentable, because everybody's going to be seeing your work. So you want to make sure that you're doing a good job. Not only that, guys, understand when you're writing test cases, what are you doing? You are pretty much planning for your test execution. And when it comes to execution of your test, you will be only performing the steps that you write down. Now, if you do not write down enough scenarios, enough steps, what's going to happen to the application? Any idea, guys? So if you are testing an application, we are working with Zuho.com, right? So sign in functionality, username and password, right? We talked about it. We told you and gave you the requirement about the characteristic of this user sign-in functionality. Now, if you do not write enough scenarios for this, what's going to happen? Application is going to break. The application is going to be buggy. When it goes to production, a lot of people is going to find these issues, and you're the one who's going to be responsible for that. So you don't want to do that, right? So when you're writing test cases, you want to make sure that each and everything you're covering, every single angle, negative, positive, boundary value, security, and functional, not non-functional, every scenarios you're covering. So we're gonna come back to this, but for now, let's move forward. RTM. So next step is RTM, creating requirement traceability metrics. What is RTM? RTM is requirement traceability metrics. I don't know if I have an example of RTM, but I'm going to tell you what is RTM. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I have it. I think I have it somewhere. Yeah, so I have one here. Rajiv, you probably had a good template for RTM, right?
Yeah, I think I have it. I just gotta search for it.
Okay, take your time, no rush. So guys, RTM is nothing but mapping out your test cases against the requirement. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, remember guys, in our Jira dashboard, we had requirements written. Now we have, right now things are like very organized and everything. But when we started in this industry, like, things were not very organized. And even now, like, you still need the RTM, but slowly, like, the need of RTM is disappearing, but it's okay. You still need to understand what is RTM, right? So the requirement, if we had like so many requirements in place. So let's say, like, you have requirement 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's just say these are the requirements. These are the requirement numbers. So let's say you have 100 requirement here in this section, right? Now you're writing test cases for each requirement. You guys saw when you write test cases, one requirement could have multiple test cases. For example, the last one you guys are submitting, you are writing 30 to 40 test cases for one single requirement, right? So think about when you have 100 requirement, you think how many test cases we're gonna have we will be writing against 100 test cases. It's going to be at least 1,000, if not more, right? So when you're doing that, things could get messy. So what do you want to do at the end of the day? You want to make sure that you have written test cases for each requirement. And when you do that, it becomes RTM. You have to map it out. Once you map it out, it becomes RTM. So I think it's right here. So look at this. So we have requirement 1, requirement 2, 3, and 4. So only 4 requirement. These are the descriptions of the requirement. Now, like I said before, if you have 100 requirement, how would you know that you written test case for each one of them? So what you have to do, you have to kind of create a template, whether if it's Excel template or something else. You know, the easier way to do it is to do it in an Excel format, right? So you put this requirement test cases against it. Notice, right? You know, we create a box, and within that box, we have mapped this test cases against the requirement, right? If you see that requirement, first requirement has 3 test cases, so we kind of mapped it against it. Second requirement has about 6 test cases, so we mapped it against it. Third test cases has this many test cases, and we have mapped it against it. Fourth test cases have fourth requirement has 2 test cases, we have mapped it against it. Now, if we had another test case, let's say test case number 5, whatever it is, you know, let's say this is nothing but let's say it's just a test. And what happened here? You don't have any test cases, right? Is it easier to identify that, hey, one of the requirement that I did that we have in place, I did not write any test cases? It is, I think it's easier for you to identify. Is my screen visible, guys? Is it too small?
You can increase it a little more. And I also shared the requirement document, the RTM
RTM.
by email. Yeah.
This one, right? No, that's not it. Which email address you use? Got it. Thank you, sir. Okay, so if you guys see this same thing, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. Is it better?
A little more. There,
200,
perfect.
200%, okay.
Perfect.
So guys, look at this. I want everybody to participate in this. I want to know if you're understanding. So look at this requirement, requirement 0.01, right? This is the requirement. This many test cases you have written. Requirement 2, you have written this test case. Requirement 3, same thing, multiple test cases. So basically it's just a checklist. What is RTM? Is nothing but a checklist to make sure you have written test cases for each requirement, nothing more than that, right? Does it make sense?
Kadir bhai, can you explain it a little more?
Okay, so say you have 100 test cases, right? The 100 requirement. Let's say you have 100 requirement. To see now. Give me 1 second. Ajay,
Yes, brother.
how is everything?
It's going, brother. Hopefully I have some news soon, you know?
I cannot wait. You're
Sure.
making me wait. I'm like waiting for your news more than waiting for my news. I never waited for my news. Anyway, so just, you know, I really didn't work with Google Sheet, so trying to figure it out as I go. Okay, so what do you see here, guys? What do you see here?
Requirement ID number.
And what is this? Like, it's basically requirement ID and the requirement, right? So requirement, first requirement is saying user shall be able to navigate to the home page and then sign on page. This is a requirement, right? What do you have to do when you have a requirement in place? What do you have to do? Anyone, guys, speak
We
up.
have to finalize the requirement.
No, you don't finalize the requirement. That's BA's job. But your job is to perform
Test
ST.
it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Prioritize the requirement.
No, you don't prioritize the requirement. When you get the requirement, what do you do?
You test the requirement.
We test it.
How do you do that?
We write test cases.
For test cases.
But before you writing test cases, what do you do? What is a requirement? A requirement is nothing but bunch of lines that they write in a Word format or a Jira format. So what is your very first step before you writing test cases? What do you need to do?
And analyze.
Analyze and understand the requirement. If you don't understand the requirement, how would you write test cases? So your very first step is to understand the requirement, right? So you have this requirement. Now you are reading through this requirement and you assume that you have full understanding of the requirement. And then what do you do?
Create,
Next step.
Go ahead, guys.
According to requirement, we have to make step what we do.
And what is the step? What is the steps called?
description.
I want more involvement, guys.
We a test plan.
Okay, after test plan, what do you do?
Test cases.
Test cases, right? Requirement is directly tied to test cases. So your first step is to understand the requirement. If you go back to STLC document, what do you see? Right? Analyze the requirement, create test plan, create test cases, right? Create a requirement and the test cases, they're directly connected. Test cases comes from requirement only, right? So once you understand the requirement, you start writing test cases. Now, let's say you have, let me see if I can show you my Jira or something. Give me 1 second, please. So if you look at this, how many, let me do it a little bit better like this. Smart and issue type equal to story. So take a look at this, guys. How many requirement do I have here? Look at the list. What do you see in the bottom of the list? How many requirement I have? 410
410.
requirement. Now, last week I give you homework to do create test cases for one requirement. How many test cases did you write for one requirement? An average 30.
Yeah.
So now you have 410 requirements here. Now, if you are writing test cases and an average of 30 test cases per requirement, how many test cases do you have in place? I cannot do the math, but we have too many test cases, right? So how do you know which requirement falls, which test case falls under which requirement? And how do you know you have written test cases for all of these requirements? How would you know? You need something in place for that. And this is where RTM comes into the picture. And now if you look at the RTM, what does it do? One side, you list out all this requirement, all this 410 requirement. In this case, we don't have that many, but you list out all of these requirement in one side, and the other side you put appropriate test cases against it. This is nothing but that. So this is test case. Look, here is saying in the header functional test cases. So test case number, priority. You may or may not need this too, but you need to put your test cases against the appropriate requirement. Is it clear? Does it make sense?
I'm clear now, boy. Thank you.
Perfect. Is everyone clear, or anyone has any questions about RTM? Come on, guys, speak up.
So basically, Kadir bhai, the requirement trackable system is the short version of the requirement and the case description.
No, you
The
cannot
test cases.
say that. You cannot say that it's short version of the requirement and test cases. Requirement traceability matrix is responsible to map out test cases against each requirement, each appropriate requirement, to make sure that you have covered all the requirement by your test cases.
Like a mini tracker.
It's a tracker. It's like a tracker, making sure the job is getting done properly. Okay. Is it clear, guys?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So if we understand what is required RTM, then we are good. So moving on. So now we know until here. Now, next thing is creating system test environment or test bed. You guys, we talked about this already. Now I want you guys to tell me, how do you create or configure a test environment? I want you guys to tell me. We talked about it at least 2 times, if not more.
If I can say like that, all the documents and necessary things we have to like what I say. For,
You're on the right track, brother.
yeah, I understanding, but I can't say like all the things what I need for that test. I have to
start testing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. I want more people to be able to give details. Fatima, can you give it a shot?
Yeah. So basically, you need, in order to test, you need to make sure you have everything prepared and ready for you to test. So, for example, you need your computer, you need your table, you need your keyboard, you need your mouse, all that stuff. You need your hardware. You need to have all the correct documents in place in order for you to start testing what you need to do, like to do your job. So that's like a test environment.
Yeah, you're right, but I need some more keyword, guys. Someone else, keyword tied to this industries. Someone else, guys. Amzad, anything from your side?
Yes, but I'm trying to figure out. I mean, so the environment is like something we have. We make sure we have the finalize all the document requirements and the connect all the internet and the issues we have, and absolutely zero to the tools we're gonna use to test the requirements and everything in place. And also we're gonna match everything. I mean the user story and user story with give me just a little more time.
That's fine. Your understanding is correct, but we need proper wording. Who wants to try? Tashfia, do you want to give it a shot? Are you there? Okay, Ashfaq. Anything from your side? basically the question is, how do you set up test environment?
Is it like Kadir bhai, is it environment and it's some kind of we can think like a blend that we have the all kind of operating system, we have the server, we have a database, we have the network configuration, we have the browser installation. Also, we needed human testers too.
Yeah, yeah, you were there. All of you guys are covering and understanding. I think you guys have the understanding, but you're not covering it fully.
The execution with hardware, software, and network configuration. Is that user last
Yeah,
one?
again, you're also doing like half. Everybody's doing, Brother Fahad, like do you want to give it a shot?
I would have said the same thing everybody else said. I know you're looking for some better answer, but so far I have the similar answer like everybody else.
Yeah, so that's good, guys. Before you start testing, obviously you guys talked about software, hardware, the human resource, the connectivity, everything. Yeah, it's good. But the main important things, you guys are not talking about test requirement should be there. Test plan should be there. Test cases should be there. RTM should be there. If it's right in front of you, if this is not if it's not in place, how would you perform your testing? Right? So you need to have the requirement in place, complete requirement, test plan in place, test cases in place, RTM in place. Essential, these are essential. Then you need to have the application, the software, that application that you need to perform test on. You need to have it there. If you don't have it there, how would you perform your testing, right? So these 5 things are essential. And you guys talked about the other things, which is fine, software, hardware, and connectivity, and if there is any test data requires, should be there. So making sure that everything present in place before you start testing. That's how you configure your test environment. Is it clear, guys?
Clear. Thank you.
Cool. Next thing is very important, and we're going to cover this briefly, and then we'll end it today. And we have a interview session with Shamim today, and we're going to jump into the interview. Okay, so then the other thing is execution of the test. And how do you do that, right? So this is directly related to the test cases. Whatever you write here, you're going to be following the steps right here. Execution of the system test is nothing but following the test cases. So how do you do that, right? We talked about it before, right? If we need to the test cases that we have written about the Zuho, like for example, verify is able to navigate to zuho.com using Chrome. So your steps open Chrome. So you would be opening Chrome, like we already opened the Chrome. That's the step you're going to be performing. Then you'll be entering the URL zuho.com. So literally you're going to go and open the Chrome. You're going to say zuho.com. That's your next step. Your step 3 is what? Verify user is able to navigate to zuho.com using Chrome. So now you enter it, and now you are verifying that this is Chrome browser. User is able to navigate to that zuho.com, which is what you just did, right? So that's your step 3. Then you're going to expected result. And this is probably too small, right? Let me just make it bigger. Okay, so then you have your expected result. Under your expected result, you will be saying user shall be able to, that's your expected result. Basically, user shall be able to navigate to zuho.com. Now here, once you perform your testing, you would be writing your actual result, and actual result will be user is able to. So you can simply just copy this. Instead of shall, you can just say user is able to navigate to zuho.com using Chrome, right? That's it. That's your actual result, and the status would be pass. and then you're gonna put your date here, whatever the date you executed your test, you're gonna put the date here. So let's say your date is 08/15/2021, and you can have verified by or the tested by, and you can put your name here. Let's say, I tested it, I'm going to put my name here. So that's it basically.
But we actually write this after the testing, right? After we've done the testing?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so this is when you're executing your test, that's when you're going to be doing this. So when you are designing your test cases, we did not have any of this, right? This is what you're going to be doing. If you look back to STLC, when you design your test cases, when you create your test cases, you have to know like which step you're in STLC. So when you're here, you would be designing your test case until here. That's it, nothing more than that. When you're executing your test, this is when you would be doing rest of them, right? So actual results, status, date, tested by, these are the things you're going to be doing. Any questions on testing, how to perform testing? Testing is nothing but following the test cases. Any questions, guys? Okay, let's go. Move on. So when you perform testing, this is not it, right? There are so many different type of testings you need to perform. It's just not one way of performance testing. There are so many different ways and types of testing. So I'm going to talk about different type of testing. So understand we are here. We're in STLC. We're in the testing phase. We're in the testing step. So now let's talk about what are the different type of testings out there. I have a document here somewhere, type of testing. Okay, so if you look at this document, all of this, I have identified 28 type of testing, which we're going to talk about in this class, but there are more. But if you know this 28, you're good to go. You don't need to worry about anything else. Are you able to see this document?
I can see it.
Yes.
Cool. So all type of testing. So look at this, guys. You have to memorize all of this and understand this. So there are black box testing, white box testing, unit testing, integration testing, functional testing, system testing, smoke testing, sanity testing, regression testing, ad hoc testing, end-to-end testing, security testing, usability testing, UAT testing, alpha testing, beta, compatibility, rehosts, GUI, performance, load, stress, volume, backend, shakeout, monkey, pilot, recovery. These are 28 testing that you guys need to understand. So don't get confused right now. I know it's too many names and you're probably thinking what's going on. So understand that, guys. In the very first day, we talked about applications. What is an application? Application is nothing but a system, right? We talked about it. So all of these things, when it comes to testing, they're mainly the main focus is for you to perform system testing. And what is system? System is the entire application. Is nothing but that, right? So here you have the system testing. So system testing is like an umbrella testing. Everything happens under that system testing. If you look at zuhur.com, what is this? This is a system, right? I told you guys at the very first day that in the environment, in the technology field, right? We don't say software. We don't say we don't call an application a software, or I don't know what do we call in a general term. But in the industry, we call it a system or project, or there are different terminology that I explained in the very first day. If we go back up, we talked about it back then. Probably it didn't make sense to you, but it will make sense now. Okay, under technical terms, software is called application, program, or system. and the business term software is called project or product. So mainly, when you go to work, no one is really going to say application. People would refer to it more like a system, project. You're going to hear this term a lot, project or product, this term a lot, right? But this is the business term. So if we go back here, under the testing. So here we're referring to that application, the entire application as a system. So under that system, we perform different types of testing. So under system, there are two main types of testing happens, black box and white box. Understand this? We are black box tester. We are not white box tester. And what is black box? Black box is nothing but testing an application without knowing the code. And white box testing is testing the code only. So white box is nothing but code, Java code, Python code, or anything else. You and I don't understand that code. So we are not responsible for testing this. These are developers who would be performing this to testing. You need an integration. Understand this, right? We are a black box tester. And as a black box tester, we don't know code. We don't understand code. We don't need to understand code. So if we can understand and write code, then we would be developers, and we're not developers. We are QA. We only perform testing without understanding the code. I know it sounds weird, but that is true. So under all of this type of testing, you kind of have to separate them. You have to understand what these are, right? And you can see, like, at the very first, it says black box testing and white box testing. I have all the testing written here, so you understand and you know what it is when you go to interview. If I don't want to, I don't have to write white box testing or unit or integration, but for you to understand, because we don't perform this testing, but you need to know what this is. That's why it's there. So unit and integration testing performed by developers only, and we perform all of this testing. And under all of this, like the ones in red, like, don't worry about them. These are the ones you would never perform, but is there for you to know. Okay, that's for you to know the name only, basically, nothing more than that. Okay, so these are the main testing that you and I are responsible to perform, and we need to understand this. So smoke testing, functional regression, system, load, stress, performance, UAT testing, white box. No, we are not doing white box. Let's just delete this. That's it. Alpha testing, beta testing, ad hoc testing, end-to-end, sanity, backend, security, usability, unit and integration is performed by the dev, so we don't need to worry about this. Okay, rehost testing, graphical user interface testing. So let me just explain. I know it's going to be very confusing. Let me just explain. Let me try to explain as much as possible. So you guys know, as a whole, application as a whole, we call it system testing. Under system testing, for us, under black box testing, right now, forget about white box. We are focusing on black box, right? First of all, these are all the different type of testing. This is the system testing. Under system testing, we're only responsible for black box testing. Under black box testing, there are two type of testing we have to perform. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so we got black box is right up there, so I don't need to worry about it. So we are performing black box testing. Under black box testing, we have system testing. Under system testing, we have two different category of testing. One is functional and one is non-functional. So mainly you would be focusing on functional testing, but we'll explain what is non-functional testing as well, but you don't really have to perform that. So under functional testing, smoke testing is the very first testing you're going to be performing in an application. Whenever they give you the application, you'd be performing smoke testing. And what is smoke testing? Let's say they deploy this application to your environment. You as a QA, you'll have your environment and they'll give you the environment and the code, and they will say, hey, we have given you a build. So you come in and you guys probably know by now what is build. Build is nothing but package code, is a delivery of a software, right? So you would come in and you would just see that if the application is loading, are you able to log in? Smoke testing is nothing but checking the main functionality of the application is working or not. So you'll just come in and just log in and just do a few clicks here and there and make sure that application is up and running. Nothing more than that. It's very simple. It takes a few minutes depending on the application. Regression testing is pretty big and is so important all over the places. So regression testing is nothing but retesting the entire application after any modifications. And mainly in the industry right now, feel free to take notes, guys. In the industry right now, you must have to perform regression testing before you sign off the application, and that's a must. Let's say you're testing this. So like I said, smoke testing is the very first testing. Regression would be very last testing. Before you complete your entire testing and sign off on the project, on the application, on the product, you would be performing regression testing to make sure everything is intact, everything is working accordingly. So smoke is very first, regression is very last. Understand this. Retesting is nothing but retesting of the specific functions. For example, if you go to this application and let's say you have a bug, you have an error in the application. Let's say this Zoho logo is not present. Now you would be logging a bug for that. And once they fix it, you would be retesting this area to make sure that this functionality is working fine. So retesting is nothing but testing the bug, testing the issue area, nothing more than that. Sanity testing is a smaller, minor version of the regression testing. So sanity testing is performed, let's say, when you perform retesting, right? This area, there was an issue and you perform retesting. Now you'd be performing small regression. What is small regression? Is nothing but sanity testing. You'd be performing a sanity testing to make sure that this fix did not cause issue in any other area that is related to this side. So let's say maybe, they fix this, the logo, maybe, this is close to it. Maybe this area got impacted, or you have to ask developers, like, was there any impact? You made a fix, was there any impact on the application due to that fix? He can say, hey, just, test this area, test that area. So that's like a small version of regression. You'd be performing a retesting in some areas. Black box testing, you already know. Ad hoc testing basically is a random testing. You perform testing without any test cases. So ad hoc, understand, guys, in the interview they might ask you, like, what is the testing that you perform without any test cases? That would be ad hoc. It's random testing. You just test, here and there, just to make sure that application works fine. End-to-end testing, basically you're testing for entire application from beginning to ending, entire functionality of that application, everything that you see in an application, A to Z. End-to-end testing is like A to Z testing. You're going to start from the very beginning and you're going to go very end to make sure that application is working. Everything, each button, each function, each drop down, each link, everything is working fine. So that's end-to-end testing. Backend testing is a database testing. So everything you see in the UI, it has a storage. Database is nothing but an electronic file cabinet. There's storage in place. So everything you see here, it is stored somewhere, right? You're just seeing UI, but there is a backend, there is a storage, there is a database in place, which holding all of these informations. If there was no database, you would not be able to seeing this informations and the UI. So there is a storage somewhere electronically is holding all this value. So database testing is nothing but testing the backend. So there are different tools you would be using to perform database testing. For example, some of you probably heard about SQL Server, Oracle database. So these are the different tools you would be using to perform this testing. Security testing, so all of you are familiar with that, right? So security testing is to make sure how you can break an application. For example, this application, let's say, I have my user and password, but if you can hack into my system, you're breaking the security. So you as a tester, you have to perform security testing, try to hack the system with a different variable, different parameter, different negative, password user combination that you guys were writing test cases for. So that's nothing but security, right? The usability testing, usability, right, guys, when you make an application, when developers create application, they need to consider that is that application user friendly or not. So you cannot just create an application and think is functional. You have to make sure that is user friendly, user is able to navigate through the application without any trouble. So you will be performing this testing as well, and this is not something that you'd be performing any specific way. When you are navigating through the application, you will know if the application is user friendly, is it easy to navigate through the application, or you have any issue. So that's something, it gets done when you just playing around with the application. Compatibility testing. Compatibility testing is, remember guys, we talked about different browsers like Chrome, IE, Firefox, Edge, everything, right? You have to make sure that your application is compatible with all of these browsers. So this is very important in the industry. You need to perform this testing, making sure that application, if it's a web-based application, it is compatible with each and every browsers. Rehost testing, it's nobody really performed this testing. This is for different different Windows, different UI, different computer configurations, different host. So you're testing from one computer environment to another. Doesn't really happen much in the industry. Next one is GUI testing, which is very important. Graphical user interface testing is nothing but what you see in the UI, right? This is, what is this? This is a UI, graphical user interface. So the things you see in the UI, is it good? Is it presentable? Is it workable? That's what you pretty much test. UAT testing, we talked about it as in the STLC phase, like UAT testing. What is UAT testing? User acceptance testing. This testing is done by end user. This testing is done by client or their users. So these are, guys, these are all the functional testing. Are you, is your head spinning or everybody's okay?
Kadir, I have a question about the regression and the end-to-end testing.
Mhm.
Those are kind of similar, or what is exactly, different between those, regression and end-to-end?
So end-to-end testing will be beginning to ending, and it's going to be covering each and every scenario, every button, every single functionality you see in an application. But regression testing, it will not go to that detail. It's going to cover each and every module, but it's not going to cover each and every little test cases. So for example, if you have your okay, so sign-in functionality, right? So if you look at sign-in functionality, if it's end-to-end, testing, it's going to take each and every test cases and perform testing in the application to make sure that everything working fine. Versus regression will just take the high-level scenarios. It will make sure that your regression will take specific test cases. For example, the one says that user is able to log into their application. It will take that test case. It's going to make sure that you're able to log in. Happy path, right? Regression will take mainly the happy path, the positive test cases. Very rarely you're going to see negative in regression. Regression testing, main purpose of regression testing is to make sure that application is stable, is working fine, and it's going to take, let's say you have 10 different modules in your application. And if you look at the zuhor.com, you have all of this, right? If you look at all of this logo here, right? Everything is a module. Everything has its own functionality. So now if you're performing regression, it's going to come here. It's going to click on this, and it's just going to make sure you're able to land in this application. And if you're performing end-to-end, it's going to go in here. It's going to perform all of this section. So regression is mainly making sure that all module is working fine, but it's not going to go into each and every functionality of that application. Does it make sense?
Yes, bye. Thank you. And one more question. So regression and the end-to-end testing, both of the testing will work, I mean, done by end of the application, I mean, or
no,
is it
end-to-end happens like throughout your testing, but regression is at the very end.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, guys?
I have a question about backend and security.
Go ahead, brother.
How they test?
So backend testing, you're going to have at least 4 classes for backend testing. So I'm not going to spend time on backend testing. There's a different tools. There's a different procedure we follow. You will at least have 4 different classes on backend testing alone. Security testing, remember when you're creating test cases for username and password functionality? What did you try to do? You try to see that if you can crack that application by entering, negative value, no value, a different, combination of value. These are part of security testing only. Can you break the code to log in? Remember, you try to log into the application without entering anything, username or password. So these are part of the security testing.
Okay, I understand. So we need time to understand backend.
Yeah, backend, you will have at least 4 classes on backend testing. Any other questions, guys? Now, what should be the homeworks?
Kadir, do you have any written formula or any task, I mean, of those functionality or?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I think I do have. STLC. Let's see. STLC and as the requirement testing. I have to. Okay, this is test cases. Testing. Okay. Here you go. So this document, you guys have it, I think, right?
I don't think everybody has that document. I'm not sure. Did you supply it to everybody?
Let's do it now. I'm going to give you guys both of these documents and try to read through it, try to understand it, and some of the things you can go and Google it if you don't understand, because this document is pretty old, so some of the things you can definitely go and also try to Google it. And okay, so let's talk about homeworks while I'm doing this. What are we doing about the homework?
What homework do you want, guys?
STLC. So those who still did not finish that so if you didn't finish writing test cases, you have to finish writing test cases. On top of it, you have to memorize and understand all of this different type of testing, especially black box testing. It's important that you understand that. If you don't understand it, then it's a problem. Then we have RTM. So you see how things are piling up. If you're behind 1 week, everything piles up, man. So if you completed that task that we given you last week, this would have been really good for all of us. Now we're stuck with writing test cases, RTM, testing, all of the things are piling up. So you understand what you do to the entire team when some of you or most of you or half of you are behind. It's pretty bad. All right, so understand what is RTM, what to do with RTM. I'm not gonna ask you to create an RTM, but understand what is RTM. Number one. Number two, complete test cases that you're assigned to. Number three, understand all of this testing. What is system testing? What is black box testing? What is white box testing? And then try to memorize all of this name. Next week is going to be very jam-packed for you guys. So, you know, do all of this, guys, and then next week we're gonna have to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Can't even find my, okay. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Did Tipu join the call?
Yes, Tipu Bhai is here.